works over here on 1950's farm. So, what are we going to be doing today? Well, we've just been to the dairy and we've just collected the rear forklift because, well, we did. I did have a front loader and it was all great. It was on one of their tractors. They have a John Deere, well, they have 3 John Deere A tractors, and they got a forklift, a front lift on one of those tractors, and we got the bow spikes on, and we got here, and we reversed up to the back. Hang on, we need to just lower that down. We reversed up to the. Maybe we don't need to lower that down. That looked a tad high there. We reversed up to the bow like this here. Yeah, then we got it. We got it like that, and then we lifted up, and the tines have absolutely no collisions, so that the tines just kept going straight through it. Now, we had to sort that out, unfortunately, so we had to change over to that. We've got a tiny bit of money just because I didn't realise that I've started with a £250,000 debt, which I should have realised because I always play on hard, so I should have realised that, but it wiped my money out, so we had to sell a few hay bales just to try and put some money back in. So that's the reason why. And we also sold actually a couple of straw bales as well. So there's not many of them left now, but never mind. There'll be enough for what we want to do with them this year. So we're taking them to the dairy. Now, as most of you all know, this is based on a real farm in Ohio, in America from 1950. I chose the farm specifically because it was a farm that was started up with the grants that the American government were offering people to feed the free world. Europe was heavily depleted of food, materials and everything, and America set out not only in industry but in farming, textiles, any industry or any product that the world then and today needs to survive. America set about providing or trying to provide the world with. And why on earth I jumped on that tractor, I have no idea. And in researching, I mean, initially I was just gonna, get a few mods, chuck them together on a save game, and say, oh, we're in 90. Oh wait, that's because it's all going wrong. I should really start this video again, and then you'd never know. But I jumped on that bloody tractor again. This went well in rehearsals. And it's jumped on that tractor. Why the hell is it jumping on that tractor? That is some weird shenanigans going on there. I can't talk today. Oh dear. Anyway, yeah, so to go back to the story and the point. There's a point? Yes, there's a point. I'm too far away. No, that wasn't what I was going to say. As I say, was initially just going to plonk a few mods in, say it was 1950, well, use the years mod, start in 1950 and just generally work my way through farming really, and sort of do contracts. It was always going to be on this map. This map was the one that I'd chosen for it, so it was always going to be on this particular map. But yeah, as I say, that was the original plan, and I started to sort of do a bit of research into 1950s, what sort of machineries was obviously around, and stuff like that, and are there the mods, is there enough mods that represent that sort of period of history. Thankfully there's more than enough, to be fair. Why are you not going in? I did, believe it or not, I did test this forklift and it did work. It worked flawlessly every time, because obviously I have to test everything before I whack it in. That's just because I'm not reversing into it hard enough. And yeah, as I say, like, I was just doing a bit of research, and I literally happened to see the name Harry Hill from the 1950s, and I was like, he's not that old, surely. And I I started to read that he was a farmer in Ohio, in the Midwest, which this map is called Midwest Horizon. And I just suddenly sort of then started to read about how his farm had started through, you know, the end of the Second World War, and the American government offering, you know, grants and other help, not only in farming but, as I say, in other industries as well. And I just suddenly realised, hang on a minute, this could actually be a really interesting save game. And so in doing my my research that I've been doing, I've also discovered that Harry was actually a farmhand on the dairy that he used to supply the hay to, which is this farm. So he used to, this was land that they owned, and I can't quite work out why they owned land. I don't, if I'm honest, I don't think it was as much as this, but obviously this is how this map has been sort of made and crafted, and so this is how much we've got. From what I can kind of understand and gather, it was a lot less than this. But yeah, you know, you have to work with what you've got, and not everything can be absolutely spot on. But yeah, he worked as a farmhand, and he used to cut his hay every year, twice a year, and provide it to the farm. And he used to help out when they were busy. And when he took on farming in 1950, it was 1950 when he started. It was in the fall of 1950. When he started farming, him and his the people that ran the dairy, and again I've forgotten to write down the name of the people that that he worked for. I think I have anyway. Yeah, I have. I've literally written down everything that I want to talk about today and didn't put their name in. I'm an absolute, honestly, I'm a nightmare in names. Honestly, I have a wonderful memory because I'm not reading what I've written down. I'm sort of, because I've written it down, that means I automatically remember it, which is really weird. If I didn't write it down, I would never remember everything that I want to say, but because I've written it down, I can remember every word of what I've written. I think it's because I'm really into creative writing, and I think what's happened is, over the years of me being sort of creative writer, I've obviously been writing stories, and you get, you know, sort of 40-50 pages further down the line, and you need to automatically sort of remember what happened earlier in the story to keep the fact. And I think that's how I sort of developed a memory that just got, it's almost like a photographic memory, but once I've seen it on a page, I can pretty much remember it. I'm not going to say it works flawlessly, because it doesn't, but it's certainly good enough for, you know, what I've sort of been doing. Now, we've not stacked these very well, so, which is no great surprise, is it, because it's me after all, and I'm terrible at bale stacking, but that should, yep. But yeah, so anyway, he worked, as I say, for the dairy. I'll keep digressing, don't I? He worked for the dairy, and in the fall of that year, in 1950, when he started farming himself, which he had a wheat field. Now, I don't know whether the wheat field was a field given to him by the farm that he worked for, or whether it was always that he was going to be starting farming in autumn, in the fall of of 1950, and so therefore he had already planted some of his land with wheat. Some of it's not very clear, but all I do know is that in the paper, in the sort of documents that I've read about the family and about the farm, is that his first harvest of the fall of 1950 on his own farm with his own crop was a wheat crop. So it's kind of like, so was the wheat crop like given, or had you sown it? I don't know, but he started, and that's why we started with a field of wheat, because obviously that's how he started. Can we use that bale just to nudge that bale over? Ooh, well, we probably could if we just lower the bale, James, so it doesn't roll over the top of it. Yeah, we'll accept that. We probably ought to strap them down. I'll strap them down after I've dropped this one, because otherwise we all know what's going to happen. It's going to grab hold of the bale that's on the forks, it's going to flip everything everywhere, and we're going to be in a right 2 and 8. I'm not originally from London, but I do love the London saying, oh, I've pushed that bale too far over now. Never mind. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So I have to admit, one of the sort of things that did concern me about this save game a little bit was that in the fall, because Harry's next crop was to be a crop of soybeans, so obviously in the spring we'll be planting soybeans, but it was kind of like, well, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do for the whole of, you know, autumn? You know, yes, that field needs ploughing. Yes, we can do that. That's fine. But now that we need to go and of course, part of his job with working for them when he wasn't busy was looking after the cattle. So obviously we'll be going up there. We'll be feeding them. We'll be, you know, giving them water, etc., etc., etc. And, you know, sort of storing bales and moving bales around and stuff like that. And we'll be doing all of the field work. Now, the dairy farm, as I understand it, did have 2 full-time employees. One was a tractor driver, which actually for me was quite surprising in 1950, because you always sort of hear about 1950s farming and sort of, you know, there being, you know, lots of, why is that not going in there? Lots of workers, and, you know, it was a big employment history. But I later went on to read that the reason that why is that not going in there? The reason that the farm only had 2 full-time employees and had Harry as well helping out was, of course, it was the end of the war. And at the end of the war, everyone sort of kind of thinks, well, food was in short supply, you know, textiles and you know, all things like that were in short supply. I think the biggest thing that I've come to realise since researching this is people were in such short supply, you know, and that's been quite a kind of wow moment. It's like, yeah, do you know, I've never thought that. I mean, I've been interested in the war and I've been interested in history and what have you. I mean, I was never any good at school. Ever since I left school is where I've got kind of all my sort of knowledge from, just because I never understood the lessons at school. I never understood what the teachers were trying to teach or why they were trying to teach it. You know, I just, school wasn't for me. I didn't get it. But since I've left school, you know, in the late 90s when I left school in 97, Ask Jeeves became a very, very good friend of mine on my dial-up internet connection. Oh yes, well, I had an internet where there was a dial tone before it connected. But yeah, it became like a really, really good friend, and I just started to learn. I just, you know, like sort of the things that I had sort of been interested in at school, like history. I've always been interested in history, but it was just, well, I mean, our history teacher. I had two in my secondary school. One was an alcoholic, and the other one was dodgy. I'll say that. I can say that without probably getting sued if he's watching, which I'm sure he isn't. But you know, but yeah, he was dodgy to say the least. And I just never really took to them. I'm the sort of person that if in the first few seconds of meeting someone I like you, I'll listen, you've got my attention, I'll do as you ask. If in those first few sort of first impression moments I don't like you, then you can forget it, because I'm not interested. And it's the same really today. You know, sort of friends and things is not really something that I do, just because most people that I meet, I just sort of think, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I'm digressing again. But yeah, so the people shortage in 1950 what was a huge surprise. It was like kind of, yeah, you know, of course, and because it makes a lot of sense, you know. I mean, 6 million, you know, Jews were obviously murdered during the war. You know, then there's all the soldiers, and you know, Lord knows how many millions that runs into on both sides. You know, you have to remember that although Germany were the enemy in the war, and certainly for the war generation, Germany were probably the enemy thereafter, but they had exactly the same struggles and shortages that we had, and so you suddenly sort of realise how hard life must have been, you know, not just for, you know, a certain group or a certain set of people, but for everyone, you know. And as I say, like, you know, when I sort of kind of realised that, you know, the world was, you know, depleted of people, I think that's when I began to understand fully the magnitude of the war. It's kind of like, you know, the war was, you know, this thing where, you know, Barnes-Wallis built a bouncing bomb, and, you know, the Lancaster came into its own, and the Wellington came into its own, and, you know, the B-52 bombers came into their own, and was it the Flying Fortress, I think, as well, from the USA. I don't know whether actually the B-52 might be a modern day American warplane. I don't know. I can't remember. I've read that much over the last sort of week and a half, 2 weeks, that I kind of forget which was war based and which was sort of since based. And of course, the other thing that was happening back in 1950 was, and forgive my ignorance because I've again forgotten to write down the dates, so you know, the Cold War was beginning to become a thing, you know, between the Soviets and the USA and Britain, and you know, so that was another, you know, where it looked like the world may be going to war again. I'm not in line very good there, am I? Let's do that again. So Harry, as I say, he carried on working his farm. We'll put it in the middle. Can I get it? Will it work? Won't it? Oh, that's not bad. I was expecting it to be a lot worse than that. So yeah, so Harry carried on working or helping the farm out, and so that does obviously mean that we will have a bit more field work to do in. Oh, drove off too quick. In the fall, we'll be doing some ploughing and cultivating and different things for the dairy, and as I say, we'll be doing some other things. We might even do little contracts as well, because one of the things, certainly by 1955, Harry was starting to sort of help lots of people. An interesting thing about this map that has absolutely nothing to do with the randomness of the people that I sort of discovered when doing a bit of research on 1950s. This map and this area that I've kind of set Harry's farm in is scarily accurate, like to the point that it's kind of like, has someone built this map with kind of that family in mind, sort of thing? And the reason I say this is because from the photos, and as I've said before, the only reason I haven't put no photos up is because I am a bit worried about copyright strikes and things like that. But from the photos, there was 2 houses, and there was a derelict house, and that kind of looks a little bit derelict, doesn't it? And that looks lived in, and that one looks lived in. We will be doing work to this house because Harry lived in the middle house, his brother lived in the end house, and that house was, if I remember correctly, his father's. His father moved though, and because it's not really relevant to the sort of gameplay that we're doing, this area here that I'm quickly running to, this was, or not this particular, but on the game, not far from, in real life, not far from where they lived, was an area that had some sheds on it. It didn't have this, which, because I was looking around the other day, it didn't have that. That's a lagoon, and I don't quite know what that's there for. It has no triggers or anything. I don't know. It's just something that's there. But and maybe one day with Terra Farm in the 2000s, we might come along and fill that in. But for now, anyway, at least. But I just thought I'd show you it just because it is mounded up, and some people might think, well, I wonder what's there. But there was some buildings, and that's where in 1948, I think it was, his father set up a haulage firm, to which his brother later went on. Harry's brother later went on to run. Harry's brother was never Tony. No. Yeah, Tony Hill was never interested in the farm, but that wasn't actually the bit that I was going to show you. The bit that I was going to show you was this bit up here. As I say, I think this field, because it's huge and our equipment is small, and as I say, Harry's sort of starting land, I don't think it was as big as this. So what I might do is I might cut this in 2, and we'll sort of hay one side and farm the other. Probably not this year, but next year that's probably something that we'll do, just because we can obviously get a couple of cuts off that next year, and that will help us with hay and any excess hay. You know, Harry used to sort of kind of sell to other local farmers, and you know, stuff like that. But Harry's farm had this a little area very similar to this, and this was the next bit of land that Harry was to buy. And on the aerial photos it is very, very similar, with the trees all around. In all fairness, it's not an arable field, it is all grass, from what I can make out, but the trees all round. And of course the great thing about this is I think that when we buy the land we will own all this, and so it then sort of comes into question. This is something that I sort of need you guys to try, you know, to comment and tell me what your thoughts are about what I'm going to say. So obviously with all these trees around, wood was in great demand, you know, metal, steel, all of that, everything in great demand back in 1950. Well, we're sitting on not those trees because we don't own that land yet, but we're sitting on an abundance of trees at the back here. So from the corner of this grass field, which is roughly just there, all the way across to those trees there, we own all of those trees. Now in 1950 you could get a oil powered log splitter. Now there isn't one in game. I've looked for like log splitters in the game, and there is one, but it's a modern day, very nice, like I say, modern log splitter, and it's not really in keeping with the machinery that we're using. But in purposes of gameplay and doing what Harry did, because Harry spent, you know, a lot of that winter cutting down trees and selling the firewood and or selling, you know, sort of the wood and what have you. You know, are you sort of like, are we kind of sort of saying that there is to be some leeway in, why are you not going on? You know, how do you feel about me doing that sort of thing when there isn't the mods available for me to do it in the old-fashioned way? There's only mods that represent sort of the modern day era. Would you rather I kept it and waited until it was modern day era and then we did it, or do you want me to follow the story of the family exact, or you know, how do you want me to do it? Because you know, while on the one hand I've got all these plans and exciting ideas and everything, on the other hand I don't want to get carried away too much with sort of following their history exact, but kind of losing the essence of the save game. Because the one thing that that attracted me to this is, and certainly with this map, is that these fields are huge, the equipment is very small. We're going to earn every penny that we get. You know, we are going to earn every penny that we get, because, and I know so the time lapse in the last video, from me mowing the grass, tedding the grass, rowing the grass and baling the grass, that's nearly 4 hours of me sitting and doing that for like a 20-minute video. You know, things aren't quick here, and they're not going to be quick until, you know, sort of the 2010 sort of era, when machinery started to get really massive. And I don't want to lose that kind of feeling of graft, you know, where you've really worked for it and it's been a struggle, and there's been many hours that you've kind of questioned whether you're doing the right thing. And the reason I don't want to lose that is because I tried to put myself in Harry's shoe, and like I say, I'm into creative writing, so I try to look at things from other people's perspective and their point of view. I wonder how many days and hours he spent in his life thinking, wow, you know, this is hard work for, you know, not much in the way of returns or profit or whatever. I mean, he sort of says that farming, because the thing was, and again, something that you sort of don't really appreciate until someone sort of tells you how it was. Yes, there was this huge demand for everything, but by 1955 the market was flooded with everything, and suddenly a depression came because nothing was in demand. You know, building materials were still in demand because obviously cities were still being rebuilt, and do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and sort of the population boom, which I'm going to talk about in another video. So I'm not going to say too much about it in this video, because I'm going to talk about, as I say, talk about that in another video. You know, but the population boom back then, you know, obviously was still, you know, a minimum, you know, of sort of 14 to 15 years away from happening. So, you know, yes, there was products, you know, certainly from farming and industries like that, and from, you know, animal husbandry and stuff like that. People were still in short supply, and building materials were still in short supply. And Harry says that a lot of farms jumped, a lot of the small farms kind of abandoned farming and went into, you know, supplying things for you know, the building materials and things. So it's very interesting, as I've been reading, how I think that's going to be enough for that trailer, because I've got a feeling that might be a tad heavy for that tractor. But anyway, we will try. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting to see how everything has sort of, it went almost full circle very quickly, and then kind of went back again when obviously farms started to close down. Then, you know, sort of, although Europe was getting rebuilt again, but so yeah, I'm just sort of interested in what you actually, you know, that tractor's pulling that okay. That's pulling that a lot better than what I thought it would. Yeah, how am I going to get out of here? You gotta love these tight yards, haven't you? Harry describes there's from his cattle pen, or from his paddock, he had an old sort of lean-to shed that looked a little bit like that. I mean, that's more kind of an animal stable really, but it kind of looked a little bit like that. And he said that the gap to get out of it with his tractors, even in the 1950s, was virtually, you know, sort of impossible. And I'm now going to find this very difficult, because I have taken that too narrow. I've got to try and get that hitch out here. Just try and pull the trailer over a little bit. I love these swingage drawbar trailers. Oh, they're a nightmare. Oh, now I've hit it that side now. And I don't think I'm going to be able to rescue that. I don't think I'm going to be able to rescue that, people. Because I think now I've gone too far. Aha! Oh dear. Why did your cows die? Well, the idiot that works for me got his trailer stuck. At this stage, I'm just trying to pull it out. Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna mess about playing with trying to back that trailer up. I'll be back in a second. And I'm back. Right, that was a little bit harder than what I originally thought it was going to be. But we're away anyway. So yeah, as I say, it's it's definitely surprising the things that you learn when, as I say, you're doing research. They're not very well stacked, are they? I've said before, you know, in real life and on game, you know, no good at bale stacking. On the farm, I never got given the job. I think I can remember one time, after the first time, I was bale stacking, and we were making a pit for sugar beet, because the plan was that we was going to harvest the sugar beet, tip them into this straw pit, or straw bunker, and what we were going to do was we were going to cover the sugar beet with tarpaulin and then sell it in the new year to the sugar factory. And I went down with the lads. We were harvesting at the time, and we'd got to sort of a bit where I think it was like first thing in the morning, and it was obviously too damp to go combining, and so we'd sort of blown the combines out. We'd you know, sort of greased them up and did all of our daily checks and everything that we needed to do. But by sort of 8-9 o'clock in the morning, you know, we were sort of kicking our heels, and Adrian, who was the farm manager, came to us and said, you know, do you lads want to go off and collect some of the bales and you know, build the bunker, like, you know, and so that's ready. It's a, you know, a job that needs doing, and it's ready. We didn't really have much in the way of grain store sort of maintenance to do in the mornings. Our trailers would go to the farm, they would tip it into this massive pit, it would then go under the ground into a holding pit where it would then be delivered via belts to a waiting bin that we had. So a bit like the American silos, just that all this was inside what looked like a traditional British grain store, but wasn't, and it would go to the bin and it would be put into the bin, and each grain store that we had would hold, I think it was 400 or 500 tons of crop, and we went down to build this bale bunker for the sugar beet in the autumn that we were going to harvest, and I was fine with unloading the lorry, the tractor and trailer, sorry. I was fine with unloading the bales off the tractor and trailer, putting them onto the ground, unloading, while we had another one of our class Scorpion we had a JCB, and we had a class Scorpion. Now then, where do these want to be? These want to be here. So right, I've driven you down here because I want to show you the dairy, and hopefully that's gone in there. No problem. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I want to show you the dairy. So silage in 1950 was a thing. Very similar to that bunker, not as big, obviously, but we're gonna be talking about the history of silage, because I kind of sort of thought, yeah, silage, you know, and bunkers wasn't around in 1950, and then I started reading it, and the first known silage in human history was 1000 BC, when the Egyptians had learned that they could ensile grass and other similar type materials, and this would go on to produce fodder for their animals. Now, silage wasn't widespread throughout the world, or Europe, or, you know, America, or, you know, sort of anywhere, until the late 1940s into the 50s. By the time the 60s came, farmers were, you know, sort of prepared for corn silage, for grass silage, you know, for hay silage, or haylage as it's called, and it was, and that's when you start to get the flood of foraging and silage equipment onto farms. But the dairy that Harry worked for, and I will write down the name for the next one just so as you know, had all John Deere 8 model tractors, and a John Deere, not 8, A, and he also had an A with, this was the farm sort of, I don't know whether this was commercial or whether this is what the farmer dreamt up, but obviously back in, you know, 1950 it was waste not, want not, and they were very on reusing everything, and this is something very, very similar to what they had. It's not exact, but it is wrapped around a John Deere A, which is what it was wrapped around on their farm. The only difference was they could take all that off, whereas I can't. That's there. The combine, yes, John Deere did make a combine in 1950. Yes, it was a trail combine, and yes, it was the biggest combine available on the market. It was a whopping, and I mean a whopping, £4,000. However, unfortunately, and just in case John Deere are listening, allegedly, this is what I've read, this is no experience, this is not my opinion. This is, this is what I found on the internet, so it could be, it could be fabricated. I don't know. But they were not the most reliable of combines with the header size. So in 1951, Massey Harris came up with a combine that looked very similar to that, with a very similar header size to that one. It's like a slow reveal, wasn't it? And it was supposedly more reliable, but still not 100% reliable. But John Deere were the first company back in the late 1920s to start developing a single pass combine, which was trailed, where it could cut and thresh in one passing movement. And to think that was in the 1930s. By the by the mid 1940s, late 1940s, somewhere around there, Harry Truman, the U.S. president, or Harry S. Truman, if I'm maybe supposed to refer to him as that, was actually paying agricultural companies like John Deere, like Massey Harris, Alias Chalmers, and other agricultural groups to try and come up with machinery that was A, more reliable, that B, sort of was able to do more for less, if you like a combine that could cut and thresh in one pass rather than have to have the stacks. John Deere were sort of ahead of their time, really. They were, I guess, the innovators, and I guess Massey Harris and the other companies that started to produce, Alias Chalmers, to say that's the one that Harry had on his farm. That was a second-hand one that he picked up for, I think it was about $350, I think it was. Which obviously back then was a lot of money. So John Deere were the innovators, and the A series was slightly later than 1950. However, the series of tractor that they had isn't available, but it was a John Deere. But as I say, that's as close as I could get to what they had, and it's a bit like the Britain's series. Sometimes I can get close to what Britain's produced, but I can't get it exact. And as I say, if the mods are not there, then that sort of my hands are tied. I sort of did contemplate going with the Farmers because they were 1950. Harry did have one, and I thought, well, but this was a John Deere farm, and it still is today. It's still a massive dairy in America, or Ohio, and they are still John Deere today. And Harry does still provide sort of haylage and different things for the farm and hay, not in the amounts that he used to, but yeah. So it's quite interesting that they're still working together. I mean, what would it now be? Second, third generation. So it's it was a nice thing to read. Next episode, because I'm going to end the episode here because it has been quite a long episode. Next episode, we're going to collect the rest of the hay and the straw. We'll probably time lapse that because I should have more time. There's a lot happening this week. Last week was half term and it was tough to record. There's a lot going on this week, so I don't know about how my recording schedule is going to go. As for next week, like I said in the Britain's episode yesterday, just bear with me. If the videos don't go up, then things are sort of happening in the real world, if you like, and obviously I need to sort and attend and to deal with, and when that is sorted, one way or the other, the schedules will come back. The videos will be regular, even through the school holidays. The videos will be regular, but at the moment, normally people are saying, "Oh, work gets involved." No, at the moment, for me, it's home life, and things are a little bit up in the air at the minute. We're having renovations done at home and different things, so things are a bit all over the place. But as I say, just look out for them, and just be patient and bear with me. And once everything is sort of sorted the way that we want them to be sorted, or I want them to be sorted, or need them to be sorted, then we're full steam ahead, and I'm on the wrong side of the road. That's what you get for living in Britain. I automatically go to the left. So yeah, but anyway, as I say, I've waffled on today quite a bit. I've digressed and jumped around conversations and made points and lost points and told stories and different things, and shared a few experiences of what's going on the farm. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I thank you again from the bottom of my heart for all the support, the likes, the subscribes and everything. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the log splitter and doing sort of not necessarily complete forestry, but just sort of dabbling in it as they would have done back in 1950. It might have been 1951. Again, I will check that out and make absolute definite. And I will also write down the name of the family that farmed the dairy farm, and I will also write down the Frenchman's name that came up with the silo bunker in 1946, I think it was. He was a French farmer, and he came up with the first bunker. Ironically got pulled down because the war effort needed the concrete. So he built this bunker, but I'll tell the story in a lot more detail. But anyway, as I say, thanks ever so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to the next episode. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks very much. Bye now.